Today we're going to talk about marketing. Last class we talked about green marketing and green programs. We talked about issues as it relates to social responsibility and ethics. What are the two major case studies that we examined as it relates to ethical decision making and social responsibility? Andre?
About the cars and Tylenol?
Exactly. So we looked at the decision making process of the company that manufactured the cars that would explode when it was rear-ended, and the cost-benefit analysis that they did, and how Tylenol took a very different approach to dealing with the tampering of their product in 1982 when they discovered that their Tylenol capsules were laced with cyanide. And the Corvair company, they decided instead of recalling the cars, they decided that it would be cheaper to pay the death claims. And we talked about whether or not that's ethical or not, and the implications of their decision, and contrasted that with the way Tylenol handled a crisis in their organization. Very different approaches. The Johnson & Johnson company, before they even knew what was going on, or I should say, before they even knew whether or not they were responsible for what had transpired, they agreed to recall the product at a substantial cost to the company. So it wasn't, for them, it wasn't a question of whether it was legal or illegal. To them, it was a question of their social responsibility to their stakeholders.
Maybe the car company wanted to do it too, but it's just that if they did it, they would have been bankrupt in time enough. Maybe they had enough money to do it. That's why they did it.
Well, that's one of the issues that come out of this type of discussion is profit, the impact on profit. And
I don't think it's profit, it's the ability to do it. Like, maybe the car company didn't have the ability to do it, that's why they didn't do it.
So what do you think about that? Does that, in terms of how we judge them, should we, because let's say they didn't have the money, right? That paying for the recall would have bankrupted the company. Does that mean it's okay that they not recall the company, the product? So only companies that can afford to conduct a recall on defective products should be required to do so. But if you can't afford to recall your product, then you shouldn't be required to.
I don't think it's required, but it's like Tylenol had two choices. They either recalled it or they didn't, and they'd still go on. But the car company had no choice, so it wasn't really a decision. It was just you had one choice. Because I don't think anyone wanted to bankrupt or lose a lot of business. So the only choice they had was to pay off the death claims. I don't think they two can. Maybe it's the money issue that them two cannot be compared, I guess.
Well, that's what I was trying to help us think through is that something that we should consider? The financial component. Either it's right or it's wrong. What does money have to do with the decision?
A lot.
Like for Tylenol, for them it wasn't about the money. They didn't even know if they were legally responsible for what happened. The car company, at the point that they were making the decision, they knew that they manufactured a car that was defective, and when the car was rear-ended, the car would explode and the people in the car would get killed. And yet they still decided that they would pay death claims instead of recalling the car, even though they knew that it was their fault. The Johnson & Johnson, they recalled the product. It was a significant cost to them, but they did it because they believed that that was the right thing to do, at any cost. But time and time again, we come back to the cost component. That always seems to creep into the discussion when we think about making decisions and trying to decide what's the right decision. Somehow it seems that we fall into the trap of, and as good business people, the cost of the decision versus what is the ethical thing to do. What is a responsible thing to do? Whether it's legal or not. Or whether it's illegal or not, because as we discussed yesterday, for some executives that doesn't seem to be much of a deterrent either. Right? Forget about, while we sit here thinking about, is it ethical? Is it unethical? Do they have a social responsibility? We're assuming when we talk about that the issue is already been determined to be legal. But as we saw, there's quite a few decisions that have been exposed over the last 6 months, over the last year, made by executives that were clearly illegal, but that didn't stop them from doing it.
Yeah, we don't know why.
That's a good question. Why? Why did they do it?
Have you ever experienced that you have make a decision that involve a financial impact, and it's easier to do the wrong thing than do the right thing, which is going to cost you an arm and a leg?
Yes. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to
Because it's
gambling.
right. Because like it's easier to say. It's easier for us to sit in here and say, "Right, this is the wrong things for you to do. You know, you shouldn't do that. You know, you shouldn't put a price tag on someone's life." But you know, on the other hand, he has a responsibility about the life and death of the company, and even worse, maybe he loses his job. Then next thing you know is he might run into financial difficulties to support his family. All these kind of things surrounding him based on one decision. And I don't know. I feel bad for the guy who got stuck in situations like that.
But so do you feel bad for these car manufacturers, right? In this case, it's not bad luck. They designed, engineered, and manufactured a car that would explode on impact. Why should we feel bad for them? It's not like they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. They were negligent, right? Maybe they even designed it that way because they thought it would save them cost in the manufacturing process, which is different from how Tylenol dealt with the situation. Is sure, they knew that there was a financial component, but they said, we're not going to be driven by the financial impact. They said, we have an obligation. We have an obligation to the community in which we operate our business, to our customers, to doctors, to nurses, and yes, they said we have an obligation to our shareholders, which, when we talk about shareholder responsibility, specifically we're talking about the responsibility of the company to generate profit. And they say we recognize that, but they said the responsibility to generate profit for the owners of the company is less than the responsibility that we have to our customers who are dying because our product is tainted with cyanide. But admittedly, it's a complex decision-making process. There's lots of implications. Why do executives do the things that they do now? Is because they're motivated by short-term rewards, which in most cases that has to do with stock price on Wall Street. So they're not thinking, what are the implications 5 years out for the company or 10 years out? They're just thinking about what impact it's going to have this quarter to their quarterly financials. Like, think about, for example, Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz invested